Welcome back, everybody. First, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, I know it's shocking, but I shaved. Just a little bit off the top. It ain't much, but it's honest work. And I just figured, new role, new me. As we all know, Xander bit the big one. And that means that... Xander? You're alive? I thought you were dead. I saw you were stabbed multiple times to death. Are you a Force ghost? Man, I have so many questions for you. Wait. No, Xander, please! Ah!
It's like I told you before, Daniel. Some Jews are immortal.
Is that true?
Maybe.
Good hello, everyall. Let's bring a big welcome back to the Update What's with Disney Morty.
Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, the #1 place to summer in place. It's the What's Update with Xander Quation.
Yeah, it's the Summer in Place edition, dude.
Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander Quation. Let's get started. According to scientists at the Australian National University, a gargantuan black hole known as J2157 is 34 billion times the mass of our Sun and about 8,000 times bigger than the black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. J2157 swallows the equivalent of almost one sun every day. Maybe it's just stress eating. And how long has it been in quarantine? I bet it was a lot smaller in January. In an underwater crevice along the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, divers discovered a series of 3 submerged cave systems. Archaeological researchers at the University of Missouri in Columbia report that these cave systems were used by ancient Americans for the mining of red ochre, a natural pigment that was often used for ritual purposes. Now, to the divers. Whatever you do, don't try and complete any symbols you might find down there. We don't need any elder gods or ancient monsters rising up from the sea while we're still dealing with a plague and murder hornets. The Florida Department of Health recently confirmed a case of a rare brain-destroying bacteria. Here's its picture. Wait, sorry. That was a picture of an incredibly common brain-destroying organism. Get that out of here. The brain-eating amoeba, known as Naegleria fowleri, is commonly found in warm, freshwater environments like lakes, rivers, or ponds. Heck, if you're crazy enough to go swimming in those environments in Florida, I doubt it's going to be the amoeba that gets you first. Thankfully, the amoeba infection rate is low, and only 37 cases have been reported since 1962, but it causes quick brain deterioration, eventually destroying the brain entirely. The real question is, how can doctors tell which patients have the infection and which ones are just Governor Rick DeSantis? Stay classy, Florida. Speaking of brain-dead idiots, Blake Neff, the top writer, looks more like a bottom to me, of both Tucker Carlson's Daily Caller website and his Fox News show, resigned after being outed for racist posts in online forums. Using a pseudonym, Neff wrote numerous racist screeds, including saying that the only people who care about changing the name of the Washington Redskins are, quote, white libs and their university-educated pets. And that was one of his nicer posts. This guy's so racist, I bet when he hits Control-B on his keyboard, he calls it typing in blackface. No, you may not speak to our supervisor. A San Francisco lawmaker introduced an ordinance to outlaw racially motivated 911 calls. Under the Caution Against Racially Exploitative Non-Emergencies, or Karen Act, people who call law enforcement based on racial bias could face criminal charges. Now, Karens in the Bay Area will actually have to join the police department to legally harass people of color. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, the Central Park Karen, who was filmed calling the police after a black bird watcher asked her to leash her dog, has been charged with filing a false police report. To clarify, that's a black man watching birds, not a man who watches black birds, though he could, of course, also do that if the opportunity arose. In the video, Amy Cooper called 911 on Christian Cooper, no relation, emphasizing that an African-American man was threatening her. However, the victim, an avid birder and member of the Audubon Society, has declined to participate in the prosecutor's investigation, saying that Miss Cooper has suffered enough, having lost both her job and her reputation. Man, we'd love to interview Mr. Cooper, but we definitely need a much larger studio, as he is certainly the bigger man here. The U.S. Supreme Court just wrapped up its most substantial term in recent memory. The court ruled that federal employment discrimination laws do not apply to teachers who teach religion in church-run schools. This means a teacher whose duties include religious instruction can be legally fired both for getting old or getting cancer, which really happened to two plaintiffs in this case. The teacher with cancer has since died. I guess, as religious teachers, they should have known better, right? After all, didn't Jesus say, "That which you do to the least of these is fine, I guess, 'cause churches and stuff, screw 'em." Of course, if you also happen to be one of those pesky employees with a working baby factory, the Supreme Court handed out even more bad news for you. Employers with religious or moral objections don't have to pay for birth control. It's assumed that standard managerial training at Hobby Lobby will now include the phrase, "Don't worry, you can just pray the COVID off your unplanned baby." The Supreme Court unanimously rules that Electoral College members must cast their votes for their pledged candidate and cannot vote against the decision of their state. This makes sense. Rewriting the decisions of the American voting public in a presidential election? That's more of a Vladimir Putin kind of job. Speaking of Russian scumbags, evidence mounts that Russian military intelligence placed bounties on U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Donald Trump continues to call these allegations a made-up fake news media hoax. Recent analysis of financial transfers from bank accounts controlled by the GRU, Russia's military intelligence agency, to Taliban-linked accounts further prove these horrifying allegations to be true. Of course, Trump continues to deny them, since he can't believe that someone would actually pay an independent contractor. Despite legal challenges to its publication, Donald Trump's niece, Mary Trump, is releasing a tell-all book about the Trump family. The book contains such shocking allegations as Donald is a narcissist, or Donald is a cheater. First Lady Melania Trump is reportedly very upset about the book. Every time she hears Mary Trump, she flies into a rage. "You can't make me do it again. I'd rather go back to Slovenian donkey show than suffer another wedding night with the Donald." During a July 3rd Mount Rushmore speech, Trump announced plans for a national Garden of Heroes. The Vest Outdoor Park is expected to feature statues of venerable Americans, ranging from the Founding Fathers to legendary entertainers. In the speech, Trump name-checked Frank Sinatra in particular. Sinatra's daughter, Nancy, she of the walking boots, responded that her father actually loathed Donald Trump. I can just imagine old Blue Eyes now. "We hope your end is near. COVID deaths have sharply risen. Donny dear, I'll say it clear. You should face some time in prison. You've lived your life a fool. You lie and cheat, not in a sly way. Take your nonsense and Mikey Pence and hit the highway." The Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Harvard University sued the Trump administration in federal court. The venerable learning institutions are seeking to block an executive branch directive that would strip foreign college students of their visas if their courses are entirely online. Despite the advice of experts, the Trump administration wants nothing less than a full reopening of schools, even going so far as to try to force the CDC to change their guidelines. I mean, what is it with Trump always trying to force things open? In the case of burning the bridge while you're standing on it, the Tangerine toddler has decided to withdraw U.S. support for the World Health Organization. The move has been widely criticized by members of both political parties, with presumptive Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden saying that, if elected, he would reverse the decision on his first day in office. Senator Robert Menendez, the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, tweeted, "This won't protect American lives or interest. It leaves America sick and America alone." Sick and Alone, also the title of Trump's new sex tape. New research from the journal Nature Physics released findings from their study of flying snakes. With more on all things reptile, we go to correspondent Craig's Total Scales for the Reptile Roundup. Craig?
What is up, mammals? Or should I say, howdy, mammals? Flying snakes, like the paradise tree snake, launch from trees, flatten their bodies, and undulate, appearing to be swimming through the air. They can glide up to 70 feet, starting from about 30 feet up, and mostly glide from tree to tree. I'm just saying that snakes had to learn to fly. Mammals won't let us on planes. Thanks a lot, Samuel Jackson. In other better-than-mammal news, police in Loretto, Tennessee have asked that mammals stop flushing their drugs down the toilet to prevent, quote, meth gators. On the mammal Facebook, the police warned that the local water treatment was not designed to filter meth out of the water and worried that it could affect ducks and geese. If it made it far enough, we could create meth gators in the Tennessee River down in North Alabama. They've had enough messed up animals without our help. Don't worry, mammals. It's easy to spot an Alabama meth gator. Sure, they're really aggressive, but they don't have any teeth. Jokes.
Craig's Total Scales, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here's the thing. Recently, the world lost a true giant in the world of comedy. Carl Reiner was a television pioneer. He was a comedy writer and director who helped invent the language that is improvisational sketch comedy. If you've never listened to one of the many versions of the 2,000-year-old man sketch that he performed with his lifelong best friend Mel Brooks, stop what you're doing right now and go watch. We'll be here for you when you get back. If you've already experienced this piece of comedy gold, good for you. And those of you rejoining us after watching or hearing the 2,000-year-old man sketch, what can I say except you're welcome. According to the Association for Psychological Science, theories focusing on the evolution of laughter point to it as an important adaptation for social communication. Studies have shown that people are more likely to laugh in response to a video clip with canned laughter, boo, hiss, laugh tracks are for wankers, than to one without a laugh track, and that people are 30 times more likely to laugh in the presence of others than alone. So, if you're watching this alone, go make a friend, damn it, and watch the show together. Respecting social distancing, of course. Actors will tell you that comedy is a lot harder than drama. Vince Gilligan, creator and executive producer on Breaking Bad, once remarked, "If you can do comedy, you can do drama. It doesn't necessarily flow the other way." It's not uncommon to find comedic actors in very dramatic roles. Bill Hader in the HBO series Barry comes to mind. Dramatic actors don't usually fare as well in comedy. You only have to look at any film that tries to make Tommy Lee Jones funny. Comedy inflicts laughter on its audience. It creates an immediate feedback. Make a joke, and you either get a laugh, or you don't. It's an involuntary response. Have you ever been overwhelmed by a need to laugh during a serious moment, like a funeral or a moment of silence? Have you ever watched the joy and terror in a sketch comedian's eyes when they are trying so hard not to break? Holding back a laugh is painful. Don't do it. Just let your laugh fly. Humor is also a business. Creating fresh content for new laughs is the stock and trade of comedy writers, stand-up comedians, humorists, and any number of others that get paid to make funny for a living. There have been many eras where comedy was highly profitable. The countercultural revolution of the 60s, the comedy film heyday of the 70s, the stand-up comedy club explosion of the 80s, and the sitcom dominance of the 90s. The problem is that when something gets monetized, it has to appeal to the paying customer. Much like milk and fashion, everything has an expiration date. Not only is humor situational, it's timely. Also, like milk and fashion, comedy spoils pretty fast. The cringe factor is real when it comes to what people find funny. Mel Brooks's Blazing Saddles is comedy gold with a time machine. While it often is listed as one of the greatest comedy films ever made, it's in my personal top 10, there is no way in HE double hockey sticks you could get that movie made and distributed now. But Xander, it's funny when Sheriff Bart makes fun of the awful racist people. Yeah, I know, sure. Those rednecks had it coming. But that's not what's important right now. What is important is that we talk about how cancel culture has affected comedy. And I'm not talking about the comedian pervs that inappropriately inflicted their Johnsons on unsuspecting people. Those guys deserve to get canceled. Consent is always key. Always. What I'm talking about is comedy that was done in a less tolerant and less woke time, but the people that did it are being canceled right now. I'm all for punishing deserving jerks and a-holes, but what if the jerk in question hasn't done those types of jokes in 20 years? What if that jerk has been an active and aggressive advocate for the people and lifestyles they used to ridicule? Should that person lose all that they worked for because once they said a mean joke about someone's sexuality or gender or race or religion or birthplace or nationality? And you get the point. If we had more time, we would try and cover it, but we're not in the habit of reinventing the wheel. If you're looking for a thoughtful, informed, and comprehensive treatise on cancel culture, please look up Canceling on the ContraPoints YouTube channel. If you got 2 hours to kill, you will learn a lot. And Natalie is an amazing host. Hashtag not sponsored there. So, where does that leave us? Well, laughter is contagious. Ha. Case in point. Funny is sexy. Comedy is all in the timing. Coco the gorilla told jokes, and I heard that she was pretty funny. Cat videos are always hysterical. The crazy little booper snoot's always up to something. And Carl Reiner was a god among mortals. We now go to our correspondents Daniel Aaron Bryant, Jaden Franklin, and Michaela Watson.
So the duck leaves, am I right? Next day he walks, or waddles, I should say, into the shop and asks the clerk, "Hey man, you got any nails?" The clerk says, "No, we ain't got no nails." So the duck says in turn, "Well, in that case, got any grapes?"
Aaron, can you hear me? It's me, Xander, in my studio.
Thank you so much. I'll be here all week. And don't forget to tip your wait staff. They could really use the advice.
Aaron, Sam's here. Shh.
What? Oh, come on. I was like butter, on a roll. My goodness, you guys are silent as the lambs. No. Do I really need to pop out the Joker gas to make y'all crack a smile?
Hey, Zen, how have you been? Long time no see.
I just saw you at work a few hours ago, man.
Oh, work schmirk, am I right? On the subject of work, have you heard about the president and that porn star? She's the most he's ever done.
No, thank you. Definitely something you could never unhear.
Or unsee.
Guys, we're supposed to be doing a report on humor.
What do you think I was doing, Xander? I was like the Losers Club in that Stephen King novel. Killing it. You could just call me Mr. Humor Guy or Funny Dude. I don't know. What do you think? Whichever's better.
Neither. But that's not what's important right now. What's important is that we need to talk about the concept of humor.
Like how everybody thinks they have a good sense of humor and good taste, but that's clearly not the case for a lot of people.
Or how humor to some can be horror to somebody else.
Actually, that's a good place to start. Everybody has types of humor that they love, and then other types that are worse than nails on a chalkboard. So, what makes you guys laugh?
Well, I am a big fan of dark humor or gallows humor. And by that, I mean, I just love stories that have pretty messed up situations, but then they put an ironic and funny twist to it. Movies like American Psycho or musicals like Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Other than that, Well, I think it's just the way they juxtapose dark matter with funny stuff is just brilliant. And other than that, I don't know why, but I just find it hilarious whenever something completely out of the blue and unexpected happens. But it has to be done just right.
Nice, Aaron. I think my favorite would have to be a mixture of abnormal behavior followed by long pauses, like Michael Scott's various moments in The Office. Watching people doing awkward things or just things that are completely illogical, and then seeing other people's reactions to those things always makes me laugh. And as an honorable mention, seeing people being thrown around like rag dolls has always been extremely hilarious.
For me, it's a tie between topical and improvisational. I mean, topical is what we're doing right now. And as for improv, it gives us classic shows like Whose Line Is It Anyway and Wild and Out. And when the two come together, I think it creates a really genuine and enjoyable experience for everyone involved.
Me, I love a good storyteller. I don't care if the story is true, like John Mulaney's Salt and Pepper Diner bit. I just want to be taken on a journey. And I'm also very much a British humor and Jewish humor kind of guy. Monty Python and Mel Brooks are definitely the building blocks on what I find funny or not. Oddly, there is some effective crossover between the two types. Both tend to be dry and absurd, which is a really difficult balance to strike. Each finds a way to be, as Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz would say, unflappable. And by unflappable, I mean completely flappable!
Hey, Phineas and Ferb was tight.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, can't get enough of the doof. He was my favorite character, in all honesty, of that show. And, you know, speaking of that, I could really use a joke-inator because my audience is as dead as Epstein.
After your opening set, Aaron, I think that would be a reasonable investment for you.
Ouch. Okay. So what brand of humor can you just not stand? What really makes you cringe?
Oh, I absolutely do not like it when people play overly stereotypical characters. I don't know, it just feels so unnatural, and it's like the entire purpose of this character is to get a cheap and quick laugh out of you. And a perfect example of that is the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix. Don't get me wrong, like all those actors they're really good. It's just the characters they play. Oh my goodness. It's like every single character is just cranking that stereotypical dial all the way up to 11. And I can't sit through 5 minutes of it.
So this is a little general because I haven't found a type of humor that I dislike, but I completely hate it when the person presenting the humor is forcing it and it comes off as just very unnatural. Good humor has to have a nice flow to it, you know?
For me, it's self-deprecating humor 100%. I just don't like it when people put themselves down. I feel like there's a small bit of truth behind each of those jokes, so it makes me kind of uncomfortable to see someone do that to themselves and get so little out of it.
Feel that. What I don't like is the kind of humor derived from watching other people suffer humiliations due only to misunderstandings. The comedy of errors happen just because people won't use proper nouns. I'm all for getting your pronouns right, but damn. Things like Arrested Development, The Office, either the UK or US versions, or Curb Your Enthusiasm are trading on the audience finding a character's discomfort or indignity amusing. It just makes me uncomfortable and not in a good or funny way.
Yeah, clearly what is funny to one person could be complete agony to another person.
Let's switch gears for a minute and talk about how cancel culture is affecting comedy. A lot of comedians and comedy writers who have been in the business for 10, 20, 30 plus years are getting negged now for jokes they did or wrote early in their careers.
Yeah, like how Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel are catching a lot of heat for bits they did in blackface early in their careers, or how Eddie Murphy did a lot of homophobic material in his prime time in the 80s.
At least on the Jimmy situation, they have some very shaky, plausible deniability in their actions because they didn't write those pieces. They were paid performers trying to keep a job, but still, blackface.
Right? It's not like it hasn't been highly offensive and racist since it became extremely popular after the Civil War. It was an easy way to demean Americans. It allowed people to rationalize and in some cases celebrate the violence and immorality of the Jim Crow
Yeah,
era.
and it gave people permission to see black faces as something less than human.
In many of these situations, the comedian or writers come forward now to state that they understand that it was wrong to trade in negative stereotypes of marginalized people for the sake of the joke. but nobody stopped them or punished them at the time that they did it, so it didn't even occur to them that it was wrong.
Or conversely, they say they knew it was wrong at the time, but they were in a work for hire situation that most people in entertainment find themselves in all the time. And they did the work they were asked to do, and they got paid so they can make their rent and buy some food.
Yeah, we all understand doing what you got to do to keep the money coming in.
True, but at what point do we forgive and forget? Should we punish people for things that were done years ago when the culture they lived in didn't actively frown on their behaviors or words?
It does make it very difficult to separate the art from the artist. I was just joking isn't an acceptable defense on some topics.
Yeah, and slight non sequitur. It's like when James Gunn got fired by Disney for questionable tweets he did 20 years before he even got a directing job. He apologized, he faced the music, and he took responsibility, unlike President Cheeto Puff. But what is the statute of limitations on just being young and dumb?
It's something for all of us to keep in mind. What does this mean for comedy going forward?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, where is the line drawn?
I think it really depends on what they did, when they did it, and if they're still doing it today. Because if they haven't done racist, misogynistic, or homophobic material in more than 20 years, I'm willing to accept that they may have learned and evolved. But if they never stop dragging out those same old jokes in this day and age, then no, they shouldn't get a pass, even with a sincere apology.
I don't know. Couldn't we say 20, 30, or even 40 years ago that any rational human should have known better? Punching down is punching down, no matter what area you live in.
Yeah, it's not like women, people of color, and the LGBTQIA plus community have ever had a cultural upper hand. And on top of all that, it's lazy writing. It just doesn't take much talent to lean on stereotypes or prejudices for a joke. The white people are like this, and black people are like that, and Asian people are always like this. It's just so stupid, and it's a trope that's worn out. And it's just like about complaining about traffic or the airline food. I mean, what's up with that?
Yeah, honestly, on that same token, why is it that fat jokes are still a thing? As long as obesity is treated as a moral failing rather than a medical issue, people will continue to laugh and make fun of overweight people. You know, skinny people, keep your sizest snort to yourself, thanks. Anyway, where does that leave us?
I have begun to see new takes on humor recently, which abandons the dumb and cliche style of wrongfully insulting someone and laughing like a school bully who's insecure with his own problems, Mr. President. I appreciate it because it forces comedians and writers to create more comedy with more creativity. I was tired of so many past movies just regurgitating the same "your mama" or "that's gay" joke over and over again, with actors playing woefully stupid characters. So I'm glad that this era will soon be behind us.
What I find hopeful about modern humor is that it's led everyone to be a lot more open and honest about their mental health. 10 years ago, you could make a joke about being depressed and not leaving your house for days, and everyone would gasp. Now, just like, huh, same. And while that's not a great state to be in, it does let people know that feeling like this is way more common than you think. And it can open doors for difficult conversations. I would, however, like to see a change in where the comedic stories are coming from. If you haven't lived it, experienced it, or struggled with it, don't joke about it.
Okay. And I find it helpful when people use humor to get over their negative experiences and they can speak about it in a positive light. It gives people an example that they can literally laugh through the pain, and it presents a pathway to get over previous hardships. On a different note, I would like to see more wordplay incorporated in jokes. Those are the types that just go over my head, and it makes me think about how clever the joke is, you know?
Oh, they do say that laughter is the best medicine. Well, aside from actual medicine.
Oh, hang on a second, y'all. I just got a breaking news alert on my phone. It says here that a woman in Arlington was just arrested for beating her husband with his own guitar collection. And a reporter at the scene of her arrest asked her, first offender? And she said, no, first the Gibson, then offender.
No, Aaron. Just
Dude,
no.
that stank worse than Corpus Christi at low tide.
Daniel Aaron Bryant, Jaden Franklin, and Michaela Watson, everybody. We'll be right back. Now, Aaron, get out. Welcome back. We're very lucky to have our next guest today. So, as always, we'll start off with standard questions. Who are you?
I am famous cartoonist Art Baltazar. You might
What's
know me
new?
from like Tiny Titans and Super Pets and Superman Family. And I'm a famous cartoonist. Been doing this for almost 30 years, about 28 years.
That answers the
yeah.
what do. Why?
Why do I do this? This is the only thing I know how to do. I've done a lot of things in my life. Like I had a lot of jobs. I had 42 jobs doing things other than making comics, like sweeping floors, running cash registers, delivering things, mopping floors, whatever I had to do. I said that twice. I probably have multiple jobs doing that. But I know how to do everything, but I'm not good at it. But I'm good. I know how to do comics and draw cartoons. It's in my blood. It's what I have to do. It's like a piano player has to play piano. A baseball pitcher has to throw the ball. You know, you give a kid a basketball and he becomes Michael Jordan. So it's like that. I've been doing this since I'm a little kid, since about 4 years old, 5 years old, and that's all I enjoyed, and it's kind of who I am. I do my thing.
Out of the many jobs that you had, is there any of them that you would have considered to maybe roll with for a longer time, or did you always just go back to comics?
I always, like any job I ever had, I would draw stuff in the break room and make little comics, and I work in warehouses and shipping companies and truck parts places, and anytime I was at these places, I would always doodle on things. And I just ran across one of my old employees, like a guy I worked with. We stayed in touch over the years, and he's older now. He has grandkids, and I'm older. I have kids. But when I worked there, I was like 18, 19 years old. And I told him recently, it's like, you know, that place I worked at was my favorite place. It's the place I never quit, that I liked it and enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people I worked with. It was I worked shipping and receiving at a truck parts supply store. So I would just wrap up boxes, put stuff in there and count it and then tape it up and write the address and send it to people. I like that. But he said, when I said I enjoyed that place, he says, of course you drew on everything. He said, by the time I started, by the time I left, the elevator, we used to go to the elevator, put skids on the elevator and hoist them up. I used to drive a forklift and all that. And then by the time I finished the elevator wall, all along the buttons, there was all kinds of drawings because I had Sharpie markers on me for shipping, writing on boxes. So he said, of course you liked it. We let you draw on everything. So I remember that. I forgot about that because I normally do that anyway. Like if I'm in a restaurant, I'll get bored and just start drawing on the placemats and up in the jelly containers. I'll take the jelly and draw underneath the jelly and put it back. So I don't know. It's like I draw on stuff. So I know that any job that I had always turned it into a job where I draw stuff on. So I don't know if I was to do anything, maybe teaching. I had some teaching experience. I was a substitute teacher. It's for 7th graders way back, man, 20 years ago.
My mom worked as a substitute teacher for a little while, so I definitely have some firsthand accounts of how difficult that can be.
Yeah, it's difficult and challenging, but I thought it was fun. Nobody wanted to teach the classes I went, so no other subs would take my kids, so I would go to the hard schools, but it was all right. Yeah.
Is there anything you're working on right now that you'd like to tell our audience about?
Yeah, I'm working on a bunch of books. I'm working on a series called Drew and Jot. Drew and Jot is a series from Boom Studios. Number 1 just came out in January, and I'm working on book 2 and book 3. It's a 3-book deal. They're 200 pages each, and it's real cool because I draw them they look like they're drawn with crayon and markers and stuff. It's really cool, and it's an adventure of a superhero that takes place in a kid's sketchbook. So that's really cool. And I'm working on Gilbert, another character. It's like a little merman. I'm working on book 3 of Gilbert. That's a 3-book series. Now it's going to be a 4-book series from Paper Cuts. I'm working on number 3 right now. And I'm working with DC Comics with Archimaniacs. Me and Franco are writing some little Bruce Wayne stories in the Joker, where he meets all of the bad guys, but he's a little kid. So it's really fun and silly. It's more like the style of Tiny Titans, but it's told by little Bruce Wayne and the bad guys. And that's really cool. And I'm working on Super Pets with DC Comics. I don't know when the books are coming out, but they're like chapter books. They're storybooks where you open the page and there's a double page spread and stuff. It's not a comic, but it's a storybook. And then I have books coming from Action Lab. My superhero book's called Powers in Action. That just came out, I think January, February. Volume 1 came out. I'm working on Volume 2 right now, and I'm working on a book called the Powers in Action were superheroes I made in high school. So that was really cool. And I'm working on a book called Big Alien Moon Crush. It's like Romeo and Juliet with aliens. That's coming out with Action Lab too. I think that comes out in 2021. It got pushed back because of my deadlines and my trying to catch up on all these things. So I'm working on all these books. These are the books that are coming out with other publishers. And,
You're a very busy artist these days.
yeah, it hurts. It's like all I do every day, 24 hours a day, every waking minute, I'm either drawing or eating dinner or sleeping. So there's no really time to do anything else but draw comics or I paint. I just always creating something every day, all the time. And I try to take a day off on the weekend just to watch movies. And yesterday we watched Star Wars and we caught up on Better Call Saul and stuff like that. So it's always something. And this quarantine thing is pretty cool because everyone's home and I lose track of time real fast because I got all these projects I'm working on. So it doesn't, like, the time I've taken advantage of the time so I could just keep working and moving forward, and it's kind of cool. I like that answer for one simple question. What are you working on? Boom.
Like, for one question, do you have anything you'd like to advertise right now? Let me tell you my life story.
Yeah. That's true.
We're supposed to save that for the Who You.
That's true.
Out of all the characters you've worked on, what's your favorite character to work on and why?
Oh man, I like all the characters. Like, I love the DC characters. I had a good time with Tiny Titans and Superman. I had a great time with Hellboy, Itty Bitty Hellboy.
Oh,
But,
I love that whole series.
Eisner Award-winning Itty Bitty Hellboy, and we did 2 volumes of that. And that was really cool. But nothing beats working on my own characters. Like, sometimes, like when you have a deadline and you say, "Oh, I got to finish this book for this publisher. If I do 5 pages today, I'll be good." But when you do your own character, I could just put some headphones on, and music and movies or whatever, and just draw all night. And I love working on Action Cat. It was really cool. I'm gonna make some more of him. I love working on Wolf Boy, Patrick the Wolf Boy. That was really cool. And I have about, I say I have about 3,000 characters, but 2 or 3 of them are hot right now. So but I love working on my own characters, especially Powers in Action on my own superheroes. And it's so free to just make a book the way you want. Like Drew and John are my own characters and Gilbert are my own characters. And if everything goes well with all of my deadlines right now, I'll be finished with a lot of these books by June. And in June, July, August-ish, kind of, now that there's no San Diego Con, I actually have more time. Me and Franco are going to start putting things out on Comixology. We're going to kind of restart comics publishing. So and put out our own comics. Like, they're going to be more Action Cat comics and more comics with our own characters, and possibly some more Patrick the Wolf Boys too. So it's going to be cool. And when we do our own characters and put them out digital, it's really fun because I don't have to save up money to pay for printing to print a new book. So that's the advantage of digital. But create our own characters, man. It's just so much fun. I could do that every day for 10 hours a day for the rest of my life. And that's the joy is creating stuff and making characters. But once in a while I get to work on Superman, and that's cool too.
Nice.
You know?
Earlier on, we had actually spoken with Franco, and I want to know how and when did you two meet and start getting into drawing comics together?
Yeah, man. I met him in 1998, and we both went to a show. I think it was in Massachusetts or Northampton or somewhere like that, and it wasn't one of those shows that was in a hotel. It was in a lobby. I forgot where it was, but you had to go down a basement, and there was a whole bunch of dealers there, but there was no people. No one came to the show. And I call those shows tumbleweed shows, where you're sitting there at your table, just watching the tumbleweed go by like in the Old West, and nobody was there. So I came in with I was walking in with my supplies, pushing my cart in there to unload my table. there was one kid talking to Franco, and the kid was, I guess Franco said later that the kid was critiquing his book. It was an unsolicited critique, an editorial. And so as I walk up with my supplies, I hear Franco say, "Well, if you don't like the book, you don't have to buy it." And he pulled the book out of the kid's hand. He goes, "Now get out of here." And I'm like, and I looked at Franco and said, "Wow, do you sell a lot of books like that? You using that technique?" And he went, "Oh." And then I turned around, I set up my table right next to him. So he was he was a little annoyed with me at first, but then nobody was at this show. So I ended up asking him, "What do you do? What do you draw?" I said, "Can I look at some of your books?" And then I was reading him. He was real cartoony. He was doing Weirdsville. And then I was drawing a book called Craybaby Adventures. So I said, "You want to trade?" So I'll trade 6 of mine for 6 of his. And that's what we did. And I read his books. I liked them. And then it turned out at that time, I was living on the East Coast. So I was about 20 minutes from the guy's house. And so we kept contact after the show because it was a 3-day show. So we got to hang out for each other for 3 days. And we ended up going like to lunch and dinner and all that after the show. And so we just got to hang out and we became friends. And it turns out that he was 20 minutes from my house. I was living in Connecticut and he was right over the border in New York. So I would go to his house and draw and we watch wrestling and eat pizza and stuff. And that's how we became friends. And then we crossed over Weirdsville, his characters with the Craybaby Adventures. And then we released a book called Craybaby Weirdsville. Yeah, and it was called, I forgot what the title exactly, but we started crossing over our characters. And then one day I showed up with a little sketch in my sketchbook of this little face. It was a little round face with teeth. And it turned out to be Patrick the Wolf Boy, but I didn't know what his name was yet. And I just drew this character. I thought he looked cool. Then we added the spiky hair and then the striped shirt. And then first he was called Patrick the Vampire Boy. And I'm like, no, I want to make it so he could get fuzzy and cute. And so we made him wolf up. And that was it. And I have a brother named Patrick who was living in the jungles of Guatemala at the time. So originally he's going to be Patrick the Jungle Boy. But then I created another guy named Patrick the Jungle Boy. So it was fun. That's how it started. And then we just started making Wolf Boy comics.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a long explanation, but that's how it works. It's
That's
always
kinda
the
like
truth.
Made in Heaven.
Yeah, the truth is always easier to say. I don't have to remember anything, you know?
And it all started from just some young brat critiquing a comic.
Oh, that's all right. Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it. If that kid was never there, I would have probably never met. Well, I would have sat next to him, but the introduction would have been different, you know? Yeah, it was pretty cool.
All right, so as usual, we like to end up on a sort of silly question, though sometimes it turns into philosophy for some reason. So there's a lot of humor and comedy in your work, and if you got to choose to do everything all over, would you rather be a very famous comedian with your style or continue being a well-loved artist?
Ooh. They are similar. I've
Sometimes
been
ends up
told.
kind of
Yeah.
philosophical.
I've been told before that I should be stand-up. I should do a comedy routine. And I think I could. I don't think I could start doing that now. I think I would have had to go through the trials and tribulations of of getting shot down and getting booed off stage. So right now, I don't think I would want to go through that. But I think if I started out stand-up comedy at 18, 19, 20 years old, I probably would have had a little bit. I feel it. I don't want to say I would, but I feel I would have been a little successful. Maybe I would have got discouraged. But the benefit of comedy, stand-up comedy and cartooning is that end goal. Like stand-up comedy, you could get that TV series. You could get that HBO show. You could have a Netflix thing. But comics, you could be successful. You could get the awards. You could get a movie. You could get an animated series. So either one, the goal is to get those things. And so with comics, I think comics for me is very natural. It's easier because I love to draw. And if I was a comedian on stage, I'd probably be a cartoonist on the side. so either versus, but I like talking to people like this, and I just like talking, and I have funny stories to tell. But I think I would, if I had to do it a little over, I would do it the same. I would pick cartooning. I just love drawing. I've been drawing since I'm a little kid. I've been making up my own comics officially since high school. I copy. I fold the papers in half, put staples in them. I would make copies and sell them. So that's where it started. I was about 16. So if I had to do it all, I would do it the same, I think, because that's what led me here. I started before internet, before all of this stuff, when we didn't have cell phones, and I know that if I started now, if I was 30 years younger, it'd probably be a lot different. Maybe I could do both, but I loved cartooning. I know I got philosophical and long-winded, but that was
Oh no, it's totally fine.
yeah, that's the way I would do it. I probably would just call it comics because I create characters all the time. I have sketchbooks filled with doodles and characters. And yesterday it was nice out here. I'm in the Chicago area, and it was in the 60s. So I actually had to wear a winter coat, but I went outside and I drew in my sketchbook for like 2 hours. I created a whole bunch of stuff yesterday, and I can't wait to get it on paper for everyone to see. So I probably would do the same thing with jokes. But with stand-up comedy, they're always writing jokes everywhere. You got to keep a pad with you and write jokes all the time. But I kind of do that too with the sketchbook, so they cross over a lot. That was a good question.
It's kind of interesting the parallels that you can draw between stand-up and
Yeah.
or comic books, because often if I look onto YouTube, I'll see people who like take stand-up comedy routines and do little animatics using characters from another property, or they'll do their own little versions of the people who are doing it. So like when you put them together, it kind of is like a comic book storytelling.
Yeah, and a lot of comedians have podcasts, and that's a way to get your ideas out there and practice them, practice the skits. And I've seen a lot of animatics done to podcasts. So they take a clip of a podcast and make it funny. It's just funny the way the characters could speak in other people's voices, and it's cool. It's like this stand-up comedy and comic books have a lot of parallels, just as well as musicians and writers and wrestlers. Like I have wrestling friends, writing friends, I have musician friends, and we all share the same thing. We're all home all the time, and we all have to perform sometime. We all have to work on our craft, and it's not a place where you can go to apply for a job and get hired. You have to make something. You have to do something with yourself for people to notice it, and if you stop doing stuff, you're gonna disappear. And I always think too, like if I don't show up to a convention one year, what if I disappear? What if I go away? People forget. So you have to show up and keep doing your thing. And I have a lot of wrestler friends who are into the same thing. You have to keep yourself fresh. You have to keep yourself there and out there. You have to come up with something different every time. You can't go stale. It all applies for everybody. And that goes, I guess, with people who own their own businesses too, people who work jobs. You get a promotion by doing something cool, doing something that's unlike anyone else. And if you I remember years ago before I was famous, I told people I was famous, but then years before they didn't believe me. I would go to these parties, these after parties, and you go to the conventions and you go to these parties that have the publishers there, and all the big shots are there, and everyone you want to meet to give you a job. So I would go to the parties and I would wear a lady's scarf around my neck, like a pink scarf, like real nice and soft and beautiful scarf. And my friends would be like, "Why are you wearing a scarf?" And I said, "Because I'm going to go to this party and I'm going to talk to people, and people will remember they talked to that guy with the scarf."
So like, it won't be a case of like, yeah, there was this really cool guy I met last night, and he might be a good artist, but I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
And in that case, you can just be like, "Oh, it was the dude with the pink scarf," and everybody who's there will know what you're talking about.
That's exactly what it was.
The genius.
And I wore it, and people the next day when they see me at the show, like, "Hey, you were the guy with the scarf." I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." And so they remember you that way. And I didn't always try to pitch them ideas. I would just tell them a joke, just something to remember you. And so the next day they would see you and say, "Hey, how's that," whatever they bring up. "Hey, how's that horse and that goat and the cow that you were talking about last night?" Whatever, whatever the joke was. And that's the early days, early 90s, late 90s. I was doing that kind of weird stuff, just showing up with. I still kind of do it. I wear a bright red coat or blue coat, I get dressed up for podcasts. So
Let's say you are very well dressed for this occasion.
Oh, thanks, brother. Yeah, I try, man. You like these paintings? I painted them last night, Saturday. This one's called Bat Life in the City. That's my what the city feels like at night in Chicago. This one just started. There's nothing on there yet. That's a background. I'm gonna paint something on there. Probably Saturday. I like to do live stream paintings on Saturdays, and I do a morning show every day. It's like a famous cartoonist says things in the morning. It's much like this. And then I do a live video at nighttime around 7 Chicago time. I do a drawing video.
Well, that's
So
some
cool.
very fine work you have back there.
Oh, thanks, man.
Okay, and like just one final thing, like all this talk about comedy.
Yeah.
So, do you have any good dad jokes?
Ooh. Yeah. What do you do if your frog what do you do if your frog breaks down in the road?
What do you do?
You told him. Oh, sorry. How do you know if a broken clock is hungry?
How?
It goes back 4 seconds.
Oh God! Oh.
You like that?
All right, I'll attack back with one of my own.
All right.
What do you call a man who has no body and no nose?
Ooh.
Nobody knows.
I like that. I love that. That was good. I'm gonna use that for my kids today. You want another one?
Yeah, one final one. Let's see what you got.
All right. There's this guy who has a pet giraffe, and he went shopping. Took the giraffe to the mall. They went shopping all day. Giraffe was tired, so the giraffe decided to take a nap on the floor in the mall. The mall security came and said, "Hey, you can't leave that lion here." And the guy said, "It's not a lion, it's a giraffe."
And on that note, I think that's probably all the time we got. Thank you for coming on, Mr. Baltazar.
You're welcome, and thanks for letting me talk, man. I talked a lot, but yeah, you guys are awesome.
All right, so thank you for coming on, and we'll be right back.
Cool, I'll do a high five. Cool.
Well, hey there, mammals! Thanks for watching the show. We want to thank the very talented Art Baltazar. Baltazar, that's a tough name to say with snake lips. Until next time, stay safe, wash your hands, and maybe call your grand mammals. They probably miss you. And, as always, it is what it is.
My roommates are positive that there is a ghost somewhere loose in this house. But, I have to respectfully disagree with that because I haven't seen anything supernatural here for the past 400 years.
What do Europeans call Karens? They call them Americans.
But do you know why the mailman died? Because everyone dies.
So I walk into an Italian restaurant, right? The waiter comes over and he says, "Hello, welcome to Tortellini's, what can I get you?" And I say, let me get a pizza. And he says, "Okay, for the appetizer, do you want a soup or salad?" And I say, "I don't want a soup or salad, I want the regular one."
I heard in the news recently that in London, someone is stabbed every 52 seconds. You gotta feel sorry for that guy. And not only is that surprising, I was shocked when I found out that my toaster is not waterproof.
Okay, so what's the difference between a dirty bus stop and a lobster with breast implants? One's a crusty bus station, and the other's a busty crustacean. It's a lobster with...
Yeah, I know that these jokes could be corny or somewhat dark, but I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the fact that my parents raised me as an only child, which, by the way, was really annoying for my sister.